Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Great to be with you. U.S. Open Golf Championship, of course, continuing. The Pinehurst number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Celtics won last night, showed their depth, had a big third quarter, and then Luka Doncic fouled out with about 4 minutes to go. And the Celtics are up 3-0. And again, take nothing for granted. You just want to get it done as quickly as you can.
Get in, get out. Just you want to fly back to Boston and be done with the series. It's kind of the point. Either you win it now, you win it Game 5. You got to be done with it. You don't want to fly back to Dallas at any point in time.
You just don't want to do it. And so that's where they are right now. Kristaps Porzingis did not play last night, so the Celtics once again showed their depth. And now they've got an opportunity to close out the series, and we'll see how that plays out. It is also Lift for Life Day. This has been something that has been one of the really great stories for a couple of decades now. It all started because, you had about 100 players on there's a 105-man roster. So at the time, kidney cancer is very rare. It exists, but it's rare. And there were 4 players on the team whose fathers had kidney cancer at the time. Scott Shirley being one of them. Dave Koslow. I mean, it was like, wow. And so they put this together, and Penn State has been the number one fundraiser by a wide margin for the rare disease community, because the players organize it. It's their baby. They have their own board, all players. The Penn State fans have really responded to it over the years. COVID could have derailed it. It hasn't. And today inside Haluba Hall, they will once again have Lift for Life. And James Franklin's going to meet with the media today. Since people are into cover, he'll meet with the media about 12:30 today. The assistant coaches will then meet with the media afterward. And then about 3:20 or so, things will get rolling over at Haluba Hall. But it's remarkable about the dedication of young people to help somebody else. And they take what is a workout day for them, and they turn a workout day into a competition. But workouts, they compete anyway.
Yeah.
All right. This is one thing. It's a very competitive workout environment. Everything that they do with Penn State football is competitive. I don't care whether it's a drill on the field. I don't care whether it's lifting a weight. I don't care whether it's pushing a sled. It doesn't. It's a sprint. Everything is considered competitive, and they mark it down as competitive. Well, they've taken something that is a workout and competitive, and they've turned it into a fundraiser, and the fans have responded to it. And it's an opportunity for people to come out, see them, what kind of shape they're in, and so forth, but just to be around the team, meet the players, and also make contributions to help out the rare disease community. And the Live for Life, I mean, they've raised so much money now, and Scott Shirley was one of those who started. Brett Brackett's done a great job of keeping it going, and the players themselves have kept it going. What this does, there's a couple of things that come into play that are football related beyond the actual physical workout of it. When you have to organize something like this, leadership comes into play. You have to have people, who's the president, the vice president, the secretary, whatever. and you have to have meetings and so forth. Leadership manifests itself. What is important for any sports team? Leadership is always important for any sports team. Who are the leaders going to be? And James Franklin has openly talked about how important the leadership on this particular team is going to be for the upcoming season. 2 years ago, Penn State had very strong, vocal leadership. Last year they had leadership, but it was more subtle, not as vocal. This one's a more vocal group of individuals. Nick Dawkins is somebody that people would run through a wall for. Devon Ellies is somebody that people would run through a wall for. Older players like that are leaders. And Live for Life shows leadership. You have to have leaders to pull something like this off so that you can raise as much money as possible. And they will do that today at Haluba Hall. So it's an annual event a lot of people look forward to. They've moved dates around. They used to be at one point, I think it was like the Wednesday or Thursday of Arts Festival Week. You need a break from pottery.
Yes, of course.
Yes. What?
I don't know. Nothing.
Look, a stream with fall leaves. And a bunch of lines. What's that?
Yeah, no idea. So that is going on today, as we talked about. But what went on last night, I want to talk about that game 3 for a quick minute. And Luka Doncic, because he has kind of made himself the talking point because, A, he's not played well. He apparently is playing injured, but yesterday, and pretty much everyone's hit on it so far in the media, from last night with Doris Burke and Brian Windhorst to this morning with Greenberg and Stephen A. Smith and everyone, he was bad defensively. Not just bad, he was a traffic cone. He was standing there when guys were shooting open threes because he didn't want to get out and try and defend even a little bit. And
he still picked up 6 fouls.
He probably could have picked up 10. He also should have had like 4 technical fouls throughout the game because he kept shouting at the refs and they were letting it all go because they were like,
well, they don't want to determine with one of the better players in the league. They don't want to.
They don't want to do it, but they were also like, it wouldn't have been a surprise if one of them was called.
But
like, that's the problem.
But he does that all the time. That's not a game 3 finals. Oh, that never happens. Everybody in the league will tell you it happens every game.
But they're okay with it when he's putting up 45. When he is dragging the team down, it's not great. Kyrie Irving had a great game yesterday.
He played very well.
He played very well. Derek Lively played amazingly yesterday. You look at this, if you had told Mavs fans you're going to give up 105, 106, and 107 points in 3 games against the Celtics, you'd think they'd take that as a win because the Celtics put up 120 points routinely. So 106-point average, we should get a couple of those games. They haven't cracked 100 themselves. It is wild what is happening.
First of all, the Celtics are a good defensive team. We talked going into the series that it's the great isolation team, the Celtics, against the great isolation defense team in the Mavericks. The Mavericks' isolation defense has been good. The Celtics' isolation offense has been better. But what we didn't talk about is that the Celtics themselves are also a very good defensive team. You cannot win the number of games that they have won this year and in the playoffs unless you are a good defensive team. Al Horford understands how to play defense. He may have lost a step, but he regains a step with his brain. Okay? Derek White is a very good defender. Drew Holiday is an exceptional defender, which we did bring out before the series started, talking about Irving and Holiday, that Holiday is an exceptional defender. He is. Jason Tatum's a good defender. Not great.
But he can hold his own. And he's also big enough where if he's going against a smaller guy, he's got the size.
Not a great defender, but he's a good defender. And Jaylen Brown is an exponentially better defender than I think people realize. I think they've now seen in the playoffs the number of hustle plays he has made, the number of blocks he has made. I mean, in the semifinals series against Indiana, how many blocks did Jaylen Brown have in there? And then there's Porzingis, who's I'm going to guess he is not playing the rest of the way in this thing.
If they even game 7, that might be when they bring him back,
right.
but they're going to not touch him until then.
Right. But they've got guys like that. Hauser's okay. Pritchard's not a great defender. Hauser's actually a good defender. And those are the guys that they bring off the bench. They've had to go to a deeper unit to do this. When you have your top 2 players offensively, Tatum and Brown combined for 61, that's a tough combination to beat because, again, the Celtics do have enough other guys around them, Holiday, White, people like that. You bring Pritchard in. Pritchard will give you some really good minutes along the way. But their defense is better than people realize, and because they do such a great job of shooting the 3. Sometimes another part of your game gets overlooked. I'm talking about by observers, and the Celtics defense sometimes gets overlooked until you look at it and go, these guys can defend.
Well, it's not just that they can defend, it's that a lot of the times you'll see these teams where they have people who you're like, you can go after this guy. Celtics don't have a player you can go after because a lot of the time, as we kind of have talked about, the person would be Jason Tatum. But he's still, 6'7"?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really go at him. He's still too big, and he's still good enough to, he's not a minus on defense.
We always refer to it as the Where's Waldo effect. I've been in enough film sessions in my career where they'll sit there and go, okay, let's talk about Where's Waldo, and they will circle, see this guy right here? Can't defend me. And that's the coach talking. All right? And they'll pick out that guy. Right? And that's where the scouting comes in. The scouting comes in when you say, who's the deficient person you need to attack?
And the Celtics don't have that. Like, if you're Luka going into the Thunder series, you said, where's Josh Giddey? Where's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Where are those 2 guys?
Right.
Okay. Against the Timberwolves, where's Mike Conley? I can go at Mike Conley because I'm just going to beat him up and bruise him. The problem is you try and pull up the guard. Oh, there's Drew Holiday, who the NBA generally considers one of the top 3 defensive players in the league and has for a decade.
Yeah, he's an excellent defender. He's a pro's pro out there.
He's a pro's pro, and he's also just big. He's built you can't move him.
He's a pro's pro. I felt like that when he was in Philadelphia. I felt like that when he was in New Orleans. And then when he got to Milwaukee, you're like, okay, you know what? He's never the star. I think at Philadelphia he was more the star.
But that was because of the Philadelphia team.
They didn't have anybody. But he's not the star. But then you sit back and say, I need that guy to win. All right, and he did that in Milwaukee. He's now doing that in Boston. And he was not enamored with going to Boston. Now, of course, they're in this position, and he's enjoying it. He and his family both, are enjoying it because of the run that they've had. But I think everyone has seen firsthand in this run. I think they saw it somewhat in the Suns-Bucks series. Yeah, in the final that the Bucks won in 7. Like how valuable he truly is. I think with this team, his value has come out even more. And the same thing with Derek White. Derek White's been, again, another one of those under-the-radar acquisitions by Brad Stevens. I think they got him from San Antonio or something.
They got him from San Antonio for, I believe it was a first and a swap, or it was just a swap. It was something where they paid a generic amount of money that you could pay any team for a player who's a role guy. You'd think that guy can be our 5th to 7th man.
But again, this is what Brad Stevens has done. Brad Stevens, and this is a point I made last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. The Celtics were a team that was built that had too many of the same kind of player. Right? Tatum and Brown are obviously exceptional players. So let's get into styles. They're similar in a lot of ways. Okay. Well, so was Brogdon. He was similar in skill set. So was Marcus Smart. He was similar in skill set. So was Derek White. He was similar in skill set. So now you got 5 guys out there that play the same way.
Yeah.
And Brad Stevens was smart enough to say, you know what? We need to have a couple of different types of guys in there that are really good players. So They make the deal. They ship Brogdon out. Right? They end up getting Drew Holiday. Right? A different kind of player than Brogdon, and different than White, different than Tatum, different than Brown. Now, White's a guard, of course.
Yeah.
Okay? Right? But now you've got a backcourt combination of two different types of players that are very effective as to how they play. Then he needed to get an X factor guy. So they shipped out Marcus Smart. Right? They get, in the end, it works out they get Kristaps Porzingis, who is completely different than anything. And when they made the acquisition of Porzingis, that's exactly what I said. He's different than all the other players. And so now you have to defend them differently. And even though Porzingis is not a factor in the series any longer, right? You have to defend them differently because they're not running out 5 of the same guy. Right? They were an easier team to scout before. They are now a difficult team to scout because you have different types of players on the floor that, to their credit and to Joe Mazzulla's credit, have meshed. And Mazzulla, to his credit, people were wondering, he was thrust into this. He was not the head coach, going in. He was an interim guy. Finally got midseason after a great start a year and a half ago, was able to get the job full-time. And he is a very precise, exacting coach. And you saw at the end of the game last night, they're up by 8 points, right? They come down the floor, 10 seconds to go. Al Horford commits a foul. Why? Celtics had a foul to give. Okay. They're up 8. Okay. Mazzulla needed a foul. His veteran gave him a foul out there. Look, just stop the game. Make him take the ball in bounds, which is going to eat up a second and a half. Right? It's just, again, always take care of the little things, and the big things take care of themselves. Mazzulla seems to do a really good job with this team, and they're a little older now. I mean, look down. Brown and Tatum have been around for a while.
They've been through a lot.
Right? Right? They're an older team now. Okay? They're an older team. Holiday's a veteran. White's a veteran. I mean, Tatum and Brown are now both veterans. Kristaps Porzingis is a veteran. Al Horford is definitely
He's the
veteran. Right? Of a veteran. So they've been around the block. So when he tells them this is what we need to do, they seem to have the ability to say, you know what? Based on my experience, you're right. So let's, but that was a little thing last night. They're up 8. Right? They were up 21. The lead got down to 3. They reacted. Luka fouled out, whatever. But it was the Celtics making the little plays at the end.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. Like, well, it's just a foul. Well, not just a foul. It was the right time, the right situation, and that's how you play it out. And that was a coach drilling this into him, the players listening to him. Moment came up, did the right thing, right? And you take care of all the little things, and the big things take care of themselves.
You know what I look at when I'm looking at how the Celtics have played so far? I go back to last summer when all of these trades were going down, all this happened.
Right.
And like, I'm just looking at it from the outside, looking at this. I don't think Boston's the one who caused any of, like, they weren't the ones who said, we want Drew Holiday. Well, the problem was he was in the Bucks. So the Bucks said, we want Damian Lillard. Celtics see him get traded, Drew Holiday, to the Blazers, and they say, hi, Blazers, we'll give you a lot for him.
Malcolm Brogdon.
They gave him Malcolm Brogdon. They gave them Robert Williams and 2 first-round picks.
Right.
Where did those 2 first-round picks come from? Trading away Marcus Smart, who they somehow got 2 firsts and Porzingis for in this trade because the Grizzlies wanted to get someone to go along with John Morant because they said Tyus Jones is great, but we can't keep him, and we need someone to play alongside John Morant. That makes sense. And so they get Marcus Smart. They're like, screw it. We'll get rid of 2 firsts. We'll live with that price.
Well, but they also got Xavier Tillman, who played last night.
For Lamar Stevens.
Now, for Lamar, it worked out exponentially better. He'll get a ring out of this if the Celtics win because he was on the team most of the year. but they traded Lamar Stevens to Memphis, where Lamar got to play exponentially more. Xavier Tillman doesn't play as often, but when they needed a good player, he's not a great player, but a good player, he played last night and he played well.
And he made a 3. And after he made the 3, like that's probably like that's a high for him. This man came in, hadn't played all series, and they needed him to come in to give him 5-10 minutes. What does he do? Right. Gives them great defense and hits the 1 3 he gets. He's a 25% shooter for the year or something like that for his career. He makes a 3. That's all they needed for him. It was a huge 3 in the moment. But the fact that this happened because Giannis said, I want to leave, and the Grizzlies were like, we can't survive with Tyus Jones as a 6th man.
Right.
Like, this then led down the road of the Celtics saying, well, we'll help you, but we'll take Porzingis from the Wizards because they clearly want to do some stuff. Right. And they get Porzingis in firsts and trade the firsts and Robert Williams, who's injured, and Malcolm Brogdon, who's got injury problems, over to the Blazers with the firsts. Yeah. And then they get back Drew Holiday, who got there because Giannis was like, I want to win again. I want a new star. The option was not, you should not have traded Drew Holiday.
Right.
I still don't understand.
The idea in Milwaukee was Giannis, Middleton,
yes,
who's a very good player, and Lillard. Yes. That'll be our big 3.
The problem with that, if I may, is you know how we discussed the Where's Waldo? They have 2 Where's Waldos on the Bucks, which was Damian Lillard, and any other guard you put alongside him also was going to be a Where's Waldo because they got rid of any other guard help they had.
Yeah, they still have Pat Connaughton or something like that. Right.
He has played terribly last season, and he was a negative defensively. And then they brought in Patrick Beverley, who he's a pest, but he's not Drew Holiday. No one's Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is the best defender in the league, and you traded him for Damian Lillard.
I will give Beverley credit. He thinks he's Drew Holiday. And to which I say, that's adorable.
I respect it. I can respect the brain.
I don't respect it. I mean, I just sit there and go, you know what? You're slightly above just another guy.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of publicity, Beverly does, because he's got a big mouth. Okay?
Yeah.
Which, as you know, doesn't sway me in the least. I mean, it is a league built on star power. So, this is what's not talked about enough until there's disaster. So let's talk about the Lakers for a moment. They've got AD, they've got LeBron. Well, they then really start talking about how the supporting cast isn't that great, and that's why they're 7th. You don't often talk about the, quote, supporting cast, the good NBA player, the guy that is midway between just another guy and the star. Right? So let's put the just another guy at 60% and the star at 100. Right? How many 80 to 85% guys can I get in there in terms of like their skill levels, like 80 to 85% of the star? All right, and they're willing to say, hey, this is how I play the game, and this is what keeps me in the league. Okay. Well, guess what? The Celtics have found those guys. Now, it's not like the Mavericks haven't. P.J. Washington is very much like that. I mean, Gabbard's okay.
But like they
drafted Lively, which was ended up being a brilliant move. An athletic big man, and
he's a pick and roll partner for Luka, which is something they've needed.
But Derek is a look.
We love him.
Yeah, you know, I remember when. I remember when he was a little kid over at the Jordan Center. It was like, okay, it's like you kind of remember stuff like that. You know, it's like when Boo Boo, you see him first team All Big Ten. And I remember Boo out there shooting baskets after games. Like, there's little things like that. It's like, you know, when I see when Villanova was in the Final Four, they picked one person from each school to sing the national anthem. So 4 singers. It was Carly Crispin, Joe and John's sister. Well, I remember when she's running around the court, you know. So like that stuff like that. And I'm so happy for Derek's had a heck of a time. I mean, he's endured so much. Yeah, so he's had success, and I can't be happier for him. And at least his mom got to see some of the success he's had. But again, they've got some really good role players on that team too. They didn't get there because of it. And role player is always like, never comfortable with the term because you're players, right? But there's also certain things, like for example, Holiday and White bring skills to the table that Brown and Tatum don't necessarily have. Right, and so that's that's how you end up with a team.
Yeah,
that's why when we're talking about Olympic teams, I've always talked about the Dream Team, where they did a great job of putting a team on the floor. Right, every time everybody brings up, well, Isaiah Thomas was left off. Well, Isaiah Thomas was left off the '92 team for good reasons. Okay, there were good reasons why. It has nothing to do with talent. He's talented. Right. 2004, when the United States did not win the gold medal, they just threw 12 guys out there. Right? 12 guys.
Yeah.
Because the NBA thought they could throw 12 young players, especially except for Iverson.
Yeah.
Right? But 12 players out there, and we'll just win the gold medal by showing up. Au contraire, mon frere, guess what? The other teams played team basketball. Right? You guys didn't know how to play team basketball. So that's when they brought in Mike Krzyzewski, and they said, we're changing what we're doing. And in 8, 12, and 16, with Coach K in charge, with help from other people in USA basketball, the Colangelos, people like that, they put together teams. There's a difference between all-stars and teams. So now back to Milwaukee. They decided to go the all-star route and forgot the team part of it.
Yeah.
Right? We can throw 3 stars out there. Middleton is a terrific player.
He's an all-star caliber player.
No question. And I like Scotty Middleton a lot, or Chris Middleton a lot. And Scotty Middleton played for Ohio State. But Middleton I've always liked. Good, solid players. Had a couple of injuries of late, but when they won the championship, he was valuable.
He was the late game shooter. He was the guy who gave the ball to the end of the game. He said, "Make us a shot," and he did it.
And we all know what Giannis can do. Lillard is one of those guys who was the best player on his team. I will give him credit because people forget that he and McCollum were paired together for a long time. They worked well together. So that's why I thought he'd work okay in Milwaukee, because he already worked with somebody. That was a scorer in McCollum. And when he got to Milwaukee, ESPN is enamored with stars because they are the on-air version of clicks. Right?
Yeah.
That's why they talk about the stars. So it's Giannis, one name. Dame, one name. Right? They're big on that. If you can identify somebody in one name, you've got to be something special. Tiger, LeBron, right? Yeah. I mean, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Right? And they love that part of it. But that doesn't mean it's the best team. And Milwaukee got off to actually a great start, and they changed coaches. I have no idea why they changed coaches. They brought in Doc Rivers. To be honest with you, it didn't work very well.
It got worse.
And that's...
where I look back on, speaking of trades, so this is just where my mind went to. I know 2022 was a long time ago, but back in 2022, the LA Lakers made 2 moves. They decided to let Alex Caruso walk for 4 years, $37 million, and they then decided to trade Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for Russell Westbrook. What was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope then nicknamed after the Nuggets won a title because he was one of the starters for that team? Keep championship players. Because he was a role player who did his job to the best of his abilities. He played defense. He made threes. He was incredible. What is Alex Caruso? A great defensive player who does his job, fights constantly, and they let both of those guys go and let Kyle Kuzma go, which, okay, It was going to happen, whatever. But they let them go for a star in Russell Westbrook. What didn't happen after that? It didn't work. And then they said, this Malik Monk guy, they signed him a minimum contract. He's great, but like we don't really want him anymore. They let him go. What does he become? The sixth man of the year for 2 straight seasons, pretty much. Like,
well, you have to have the ability to evaluate talent and put together a team.
And then keep the talent.
Right.
Logically.
Okay. But there are certain players in this league that have been big numbers players. But are they winning players? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's give you some names that are terrific numbers players, which then in turn gives one the impression that they are
a winner.
Big time winners. So let's go with 2 guys that were teamed with Kevin Durant at Oklahoma City. One started, the other one came off the bench. The starter was Westbrook. The guy that came off the bench was James Harden. And they got to the finals and they lost to Miami. Like, wow, this team's going to be good for a long time. No. Harden goes to Houston, puts out big numbers.
Huge numbers.
Right? And they only get so far. Westbrook has now traveled around the league. And he's always put up numbers, but he's not on teams that get very far. Paul George. Oh, Paul George. Gotta have Paul George. Never understood the fascination with Paul George. Never. Even with Indiana, I'm like, yeah, he's a good player. But like, you're looking at guys saying, okay, wait a minute. I need swing players here. Who's going to swing it my way? Now, you have to have guys that are stars. Luka's a star. Kyrie's a star. I give Kyrie Irving credit because I didn't know if he'd fit down in Dallas at all, and he's been terrific. He's been a really good fit.
You know, who's a star who did their job, and even though they got traded and everyone's like, I don't know about this guy injury-wise, he still showed up when they needed him to. Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
Kawhi
Leonard is a star when he plays.
When he plays, he's a star, and he's also a winning player, as we've seen. He proved that.
San Antonio, Toronto, there's no question. But Paul George is one of those guys. Like, oh, Paul George. Like again, the NBA coverage gets obsessed with
stars.
With stars.
I'm talking
about the coverage.
Yeah. We talk about Paul George more than we discuss Tavius Caldwell-Pope, but who's won a championship because they did their job. Tavius Caldwell-Pope.
Russell Westbrook, to his credit, averaged a triple-double. You know, the first person to do that since Oscar Robertson. Okay. But where did it get them? Now, he didn't have as much around him. I understand that. But when he went to other places, he's just been... Again, he's gone... Again, I talk about the star and the other guy. Just another guy. Well, guess what? He's leaning more toward just another guy. James Harden leans more toward just another guy. I'm talking about he's not just another guy, but I'm saying
he's
he
pushing that way.
leans in that direction. It's hard to win championships. And general managers in the NBA, especially when, look, you have a limited roster. You have 17 guys. So you've got to find the right combinations. And the Lakers at least do start out with a base of they have LeBron James and they have Anthony Davis. Okay. But how do you fit in the other 15 guys? In particular, how do you fit in the next 6 guys? Let's get to 8 players. How do you fit the next 6 in? That's where the Lakers have struggled. They have not been able to find the right combination of 6 players.
But the thing is, they did. They had it. And then they said, let's blow it up. They won a championship. However much you think the bubble title means, whatever, they won. It's still tough to do, they won.
They won. It's hard to win titles. They won.
And they had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Alex Caruso on that team. Then what'd they do? Let's go away with that. We want Trevor Ariza. We want Avery Bradley. We want, I don't know, Kent Bazemore. They blew it up.
I mean, Hachimura's been good for them.
Rui Hachimura's been good for them, but even so, that's one person they've hit on out of dozens. Jalen Hood-Schifino, drafted him. They said he's going to be the next guy. He's barely played for them.
I could have told you that.
Yeah, But the thing is, they swung with a mid-first round pick on him.
Some of these guys announced their games. You're like, going, okay, I don't quite get it. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go to the draft. Like, okay, good for you. Good luck to you. You're about to disappear.
Do you know where he was drafted in the 2023 NBA draft? He was drafted 17th. Who was drafted directly after him? Jaime Jaquez and Brandon Pajemski. Both were first-team all-rookie players. Wow. They were both incredible this season.
See, Jaquez at UCLA I loved.
But you could tell that dude was going to be a dude.
Yeah.
And they said, Hood Schifino's who we want over him.
No.
It's like, what?
No. Okay. How many games did Hood Schifino win against Penn State? Oh, that's right, none. And it wasn't like one game he played poorly. The other game he was good, not great. He finally caught some fire down the stretch, made it a little more interesting in the Big Ten semifinals. I guess it was semifinals, yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, that's nice. Like, he'll go to the draft. He'll get drafted. And I said to Dick, he'll go to the draft. He'll get drafted. He'll disappear. But he'll make a lot of money.
Yeah.
He is going to make a lot of money.
But that's the thing. You look at that and you say, you guys were like, he's the guy. And they didn't evaluate the talent in terms of what they needed. If you were looking at a player they needed, Jaime Jaquez fit that bill to a T. Yeah, and you're like, this dude works and he's played in LA, so he's got the vibe.
But you know what? I think sometimes one of the more difficult things for you to do is evaluate somebody in your own backyard. Like, oh, yeah. So, well, let's see what else is out there. That happens a lot of times where you're like, we see him all the time. No, you see all the warts, too. Okay?
Yeah, you see all the positives and the negatives, but with Hood Schifino, they saw the positives, not the negatives.
Because, they come in the combine, the whole thing, maybe they're out there. But Jaquez, they could go over and watch him play anytime they wanted to. And he's an older player. Hood Schifino's a one-year player.
Yeah.
Okay? 1 year players. Hey,
yeah.
Let's go back to, I talked about this with the NFL. Let's give a prime example. Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky is a guy, right, who was the backup to Williams at North Carolina. Mitchell Trubisky put up 1 year of video. One. And everybody saw the potential of the 1 year. Like, oh, potential, remember, is a fancy word for saying you haven't really done it yet.
Yeah.
Okay? But he put up 1 year. He ended up being the second overall pick in the draft. And it's been the Bears. It's been the Bills. It's been the Steelers. It's been back to the Bills. Right? And, okay, he put up a year. Then there's Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was the last player picked, as we all know, in the draft. Okay, he's
Mr. Irrelevant.
Okay, he put up 4 years of video as a starter. 4, which means you saw all the successes. You saw moments of mediocrity. You saw interceptions. You saw more success. Right. You didn't see them get even close to winning a Big 12 title, right? Because Iowa State's not going to have the talent around him that there's going to be other places. So he ends up going 7th round. Okay, let's just not just say last, but he goes in the 7th round. Trubisky's the second overall pick. One guy has 4 years of video with all the successes and all the warts of starting 48 games or whatever he started at Iowa State versus this guy over here who started 12 games. Okay? Again, every single team from year 1, so years 2, 3, and 4, has a video book on Brock Purdy. Nobody had a video book on Mitchell Trubisky. So now let's go back to the NBA. Jaquez played and was a veteran at UCLA. He played a lot of sterling games for UCLA, and he also had a couple of games that were duds.
Yeah.
Right? Because guess what? There were years of video on him showing what he could and couldn't do. as opposed to Jalen Hood-Schifino, who put up 1 year of tape, 1 year of video, where by the time like Penn State got to the Big Ten tournament, because they played him once in the Jordan Center, they blew him out. I mean, he did. To his credit, saying he did nothing would be a compliment to nothing. No, he didn't do anything here. He did nothing here.
Yeah.
Right? So, you're watching the video and you can see the talents there. Yeah. But, okay. Because Xavier Johnson had been hurt, so he had a bigger role, and he was kind of carried them a bit, but it was still Trace Jackson Davis's quote team, right? But he put up a year, so you didn't really get a gauge for were there ups and downs? Yeah. But it's okay, there's ups and downs, but when you have Jaquez, did he play 4 years? You said or 3?
He played, I believe, all 4.
All 4 years. Well, he's got a whole bunch of peaks, and he's got a few valleys, and he's a whole bunch of peaks and a few valleys. Yeah. So you're like, well, you know what? He's got the potential. Yeah. He's an older. He's 22 years old. I mean, and the league values over and over again the 19-year-old
who's got the potential.
All right. As opposed to, he's played, he should have, why didn't he come, if he was any good, why didn't he come out earlier?
Yeah. They see.
But again, if he was any good, why didn't he come out earlier?
I know. They see the super duper high ceiling, the 99 floors, let's say it's 1 to 99 just on a rating scale. Yeah. They see the 99th floor possibility, and they say, we want that. The problem is it comes with a number 1 scale. A number 1 floor.
Sure.
Versus, back to 2022, Jalen Williams. They might have seen an 85 ceiling. The problem is that dude who spent 3 years in college had a 35 floor. Yeah. So all of a sudden, he's, regardless of what happens, Keegan Murray played 2 years in the Big Ten. They're coming out, you know what's good and what's bad about them, and you already know how good they are going to be at the worst.
Right.
And then you've got guys where you're like, I've got no idea what Johnny Davis might give me out of Baylor or out of Wisconsin, or what Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to give me at Indiana, because they've played 1 year. They gave you one, and you're like, but I saw star potential in him. Great. But same with this guy. The only difference is you actually seen the bad side of him. Because marriage is what? In good and bad? Okay. It's not all good. It's impossible for it to be all good. That's just not a thing. So drafting players on just the good is ridiculous.
Well, see, Keegan Murray is a player that you looked at and went, okay. And then I saw him get better. And then I saw him get better. And what impressed me about him was not just his outside shot, but the fact that he could go in, unlike his twin brother,
Chris.
Right? Chris Murray is exponentially left-hand centric, really left-hand centric. Okay, I mean, if he's finishing at the basket going right, he'll still finish with his left hand. Not Keegan. He became a guy that could finish with either hand, which means he was competent both offensively and defensively,
moving
left to right. Because he was comfortable going either way.
And what has he become in Sacramento? Star.
He's become a really good two-way player. We talked yesterday about Jerry West. What made Jerry West a great player? Yes, he was a great shooter. Not a good shooter, a great shooter. But he was an excellent defensive player.
Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, killers on offense, but also took the guys on defense. They took the best. They were like, I want him. They were both defensive players.
Kobe Bryant comes out of Lower Merion. Nobody knew what to think of him. They didn't know. I mean, they played, I'm trying to think, who the heck? They played a team from the Catholic League. It may have been Roman. I think it was Roman Catholic. And remember, at this particular time, right, the Catholic League schools were not allowed to be in the PIAA championship. The team from Roman took Lower Merion. This is when Kobe was a senior. Took Lower Merion apart.
Yeah.
I'm talking took them apart. And he didn't play well. Like, okay, and that's why, really? So the Lakers brought him out to work out. And Jerry West had him go against Michael Cooper. Now, at that point, Cooper was 40 years old. Okay? But Michael Cooper was still in great shape.
Could still play.
Yeah. He couldn't play in the league anymore, but Kobe Bryant took him apart. Then, and Jerry West was there. Then West said, we're going to do another workout with another guy they were thinking about drafting, and this time they brought Del Harris, who was the coach at the time, over to take a look. And he took him apart. So they get the draft day. And again, nobody, Kobe Bryant's life has become mythology, right? The part about it that is not quite right on path is what he was thought of coming out of high school, because they just had gone back to the 18-year-old playing, and Kevin Garnett had come out the year before, and Garnett, like, holy mackerel, 6'10", he's 6'11", he can do all these things, and Garnett ended up having a great career, and he ended up winning a title in 2008 with the Celtics. But people weren't sure. So he engineers a deal with Charlotte, because the Lakers were drafting, I think, 17th or something like that. Charlotte, I think, drafted 13th.
Charlotte had 13th overall pick, and I'm trying to find the Lakers pick currently.
I thought they were 17 or 18 or something like that. And he's going to send Vlade Divac and a little bit of a package over to Charlotte to do this. Divac says he won't do it. I'm not leaving. All right? And West is like, I don't care what you say, we're trading you anyway. And Charlotte was a bit apprehensive because they needed a commitment that Divac was going to play. So finally, they get to the point, and Charlotte drafts the guy the Lakers want. Kobe Bryant. Bryant comes out on stage. David Stern gives him the hat. Charlotte Hornets. Okay. Done. 15 minutes later, hit the button. Divac and the package of players. I can't remember the other players that went. I think there was a draft choice and Divac and like one other player that go to Charlotte.
Yeah.
And they get Kobe Bryant. Well, then after he drafts Kobe Bryant, he then later signs as a free agent Shaquille O'Neal.
1 week later.
Well, again, part of the mythology of Kobe Bryant is he walked in the league and was Mamba and dominated it right away. No. His first 2 years, he was an okay NBA player. He was okay. In other words, he wasn't poor. He was good. He was a good player. He wasn't very good. He wasn't excellent. He wasn't exceptional. He was good. In his third year, which would have been his junior year of college, everything then, the tumblers all fell into place, and he kicked it into another gear and became the Kobe Bryant that everybody to this day brags about as to the kind of player he ended up being. I think he won 5 championships.
He ended up
career.
And
in 2008, as you know, I told you before, when they were putting the Olympic team together, they said there's one guy they have to have above everybody else, because Kobe Bryant did not play USA basketball. They said they need to convince Kobe Bryant to play. But that's what Jerry West did. That is talent evaluation, which is what we're talking about here. Talent evaluation. So there's a guy that's 18, right? High school player, no tape. Like, let's rack up the Roman Catholic Lower Merion tape. Well, I'm not taking that guy. All right?
Yeah.
I mean, Roman blew him out. I mean, like, not a competitive game at all. But then Lower Merion went on. I think they won the state championship.
Yeah.
But again, the Catholic schools weren't allowed to play at that particular time in the 90s. see, those are the tough, even with him, nobody knew because it's hard to tell. And it's happening, at least on the college level with the one and dones. At least you do see a season of them going up against comparable competition. And it gives you at least a little bit better read. But let's go to Hood Schifino versus Jaquez. When it comes to evaluation, sometimes less is more.
The Charlotte Hornets, this past draft, they were picking second, and everyone thought Scoot Henderson's going to go number 2. He's that talented. He's amazing. Who'd they take? Brandon Miller. Why? They had more tape on him. They were able to see his positives, his negatives, and he showed them throughout a season. He got better and better and better at Alabama, even while like you could see his positive negatives. You could see everything going on with him. He was getting better and better and better, and he led them into the tournament, and they did well with it.
Again, I don't know how good G League Ignite is as to who they play against. You don't know. That's why the competition part, that's why I've said for years, and they'll never do it. I wish the rule were 2-20. 2-20 would be exponentially better for college basketball. That's one. Okay, so obviously broadcasting the college game, I think it's better for the game I broadcast, right? And then it also would be exponentially better for the NBA. You'd have a better read on people, a better read on prospects, and I want an older, more mature league. I'd prefer that because I think it would be a better product having an older, more mature league. I don't mean a bunch of 30 to 35-year-olds. I'm talking about 20.
Yes.
And there's a difference between 20 and 19. There is. I mean, the NFL has a 3-year rule. You have to be out of high school 3 years to get drafted now in that league. I mean, the physicality of it. But at least you're getting more mature players that in playing 3 years of college have been around the block. Now, the Trubisky example I used was as a quarterback. He wasn't going to be a 3-year starter.
Yeah.
Right? But when Saquon Barkley came out, they had tape of him left and right. The tape showed what kind of receiver he was, what kind of kick returner he was, what kind of running back he happened to be, how does he use his blocks, what kind of job does he do in pass protection.
Yeah. You know what? Fans get so mad when they see all these European players get drafted in the NBA. Luka Doncic, we saw play.
More mature.
We saw him play in the top European league for like 3 years, a 16-year-old kid. Yeah. And then they came and they played, I think, the Celtics in like his 15, 16 or something like that. And then he destroyed them in a preseason friendly game. And then everyone's like, that guy's going to be really good. Victor Wembanyama, we saw this dude play in Europe.
Well, they play against men.
But he's playing against men and he's playing an actual game and you have tape on him that's positive and negative. It's not just one season of it. It is a full 3 years of tape on him growing, getting better, and also his positives and negatives.
In general, this is a generalization. So there's certain guys you can pick out that don't fit this. In general, I've always found the European players, in general, I'm talking about the NBA European players, not college.
Yeah.
Okay? They have better fundamentals. In general. You're going to have some people that aren't going to fit into that completely. But I've felt like Dirk Nowitzki had excellent fundamentals, and I think he kind of led the way in that regard. But I think they feel that their best shot of getting over to play here is to play the game, quote, right. Right? They don't skip steps to do it. In college, just because you're a foreign player, doesn't mean you can be a foreign player and end up being, Chewbacca.
No reason for that.
What? I love that kid.
Yes.
But Jonas was here 3 years,
But there's so many Europeans that come over, like Porzingis. He was laughed at when the Knicks drafted him, but he came over with fundamentals. He understood how to play defense, how to play offense, where to be, how to do it, and all of that. And look at that. He's actually a really good player.
But he also ended up in one of the worst situations you can end up in.
But we don't.
And I only say that. I don't understand why there wasn't more trust that Phil Jackson knew what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because the New York fan can be a cruel fan.
Mm-hmm.
So can Philadelphia. But there's reasons for that.
Mm-hmm. The New York fans can be cruel, and it's...
Who's this guy? Why didn't you draft whatever? Okay. You can be the big name sometimes, the one-and-done big name. The Sixers drafted Okafor.
Mm-hmm.
And, and Duke won the national title, and Okafor, I believe Okafor was the MOP.
He was.
Right. And he can't defend anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, and he was like the 4th overall pick. And I'm like, okay, I understand he's a big name, but he's a one-and-done guy that's not a good defender. What bothers me is that the NBA people think they can teach these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, they're really...
Mm-hmm. He went 3rd, by the way, in that draft. And who went right after Okafor? Porzingis.
Porzingis did. And Porzingis comes in, and he's in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of all the places for him to go to where everything he does is scrutinized beyond words, right? And do you need that?
Well, they also gave him they put him not just in New York with that happening, put him in New York with the star who was also having so many problems with the front office, where it was just like a circus every day because Carmelo loved New York. The Knicks didn't love Carmelo. The fans loved Carmelo. And it was like, huh? And we all know how that's all ended. But that was like, it was a pressure cooker. And it only got worse. And then he got hurt. And then all of a sudden, all the floodgates open for all of the fan vitriol to come out and go directly at him. Because as soon as Melo was gone, he's the guy. Right. He's the unicorn. He's the this and the that and the other. Right. And New York looks for a savior always.
Is Porzingis the star of the Celtics?
No.
But boy, he's been a big reason why they are where they are.
He has starred in his role.
Right. Well, not just his role. He's just, again, right? You could tell the other players love playing with him and love having him out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. In New York, there weren't enough other parts around it.
Mm-hmm.
And Carmelo Anthony, I will quickly say, when you watch him play USA basketball, or when he did, he was on gold medal winning teams. Now he was on the 2004 team. That
team was different,
right? That team was like, yeah, we can throw anybody out there. It's like, oh, no, you really can't.
Yeah.
Right? But then when he was on subsequent USA teams, you know what? He's a really good player.
And he was the best player on those teams. They've all discussed he was our number one.
He was a really, really good player.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had to be the passer, he passed. When he had to be a defender, he defended. When he had to be the shooter, he shot.
Mm-hmm.
And USA basketball is something that fans don't really see a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And may not realize. Like I feel in USA basketball, he actually showed how great he truly happens to be.
Yeah.
It's easy to take shots at people.
Mm-hmm.
He's been an easy guy for a lot of people to take shots at, whether it was he was in Denver or New York or wherever he ended up at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's pretty good in the commercials with Eli Manning.
Hey, he brought Syracuse a championship. That's all I could ever ask for.
Jerry McNamara.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.